Power was never something given. It was something claimed. And most people spend their lives waiting for approval, for validation, for the right time, the right look, the right words, the right audience, as if their soul came here to beg for permission, to become. But what if I told you, if you were already enough, not in the way that comforts, in the way that calls, in the way that challenges every excuse you've ever made for why you're not already stepping forward as the force you were born to be? There is a sickness in this world, a psychological paralysis, a learned helplessness, where we cage ourselves behind politeness, behind trauma, behind what if they don't approve? But let me tell you something about them. They don't even approve of themselves. So why would you hand them the keys to your kingdom? You don't need their applause. You don't need their permission. Because power is not something you wait for. Power is something you remember. You were born with fire in your bones. Before you learned shame, before you learned to filter your voice, before the world taught you to sit still, smile small, and not scare anyone. But you were made to scare people, not because you're dangerous, but because you're awake. And people who are still asleep will always be terrified of someone who no longer dreams their life, but lives it. Carl Jung said, the privilege of to become who you truly are. But becoming demands rebellion. Rebellion against the idea that you must be palatable to be worthy. Rebellion against the script handed to you by your upbringing, your culture, your wounds. You must burn the script. You must unlearn the lie that says your voice is only valid when it's invited. Your voice is valid because it is yours. Your truth doesn't need to be soft to be sacred. And your power, your real soul-born power, doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself every single day. Let's speak of the mind, that sacred battlefield, that temple, and that trap. It is where your greatness was forged and where your weakness now whispers. You were not born afraid. Fear was installed, like malware, line by line. You're too much. You're not enough. Who do you think you are? You must uninstall every belief that taught you to shrink, because the mind does not serve those who serve doubt. It only bends to those who stand unapologetically in their own becoming. There is a frequency that can't be faked. It's the frequency of someone who has returned to themselves, no longer outsourcing authority, no longer submitting to every opinion like it's gospel. You can't become powerful if you still believe someone else has your map. You are the map. You are the compass. You are the storm and the stillness after. But first, you must confront the part of you that asks to exist. That part of you that still raises its hand, waiting for someone to nod so it can finally speak. Kill that part. Kill it with truth. Kill it with clarity. Kill it with a decision that this life is not a rehearsal for some later performance. This is the show, and your power is the main act. You don't get powerful by reading affirmations. You get powerful by keeping promises to yourself, by doing what needs to be done, even when the world is watching, and especially when it's not. You become powerful when you say no to things. that used to own you, to people who no longer deserve access, to thoughts that used to run your mind like a tyrant, to old identities that beg for resurrection. Every time you get lonely, you don't need permission to raise your standards, to break a cycle, to walk away from chaos, to evolve so fast, your old self can't keep up. You don't need permission to speak louder, to take up more space, to walk into rooms like your presence is the answer, because it is. Let's talk about belief, not the kind you post about, the kind that changes how you breathe, the kind that anchors your being, even when the ground beneath you shakes. Belief is not a mood. It's a mechanism, a switch that flips when you realize that nobody's coming to crown you. You must crown yourself with blood, with sweat, with every no you turned into purpose. You build belief by becoming undeniable. You build it by acting in alignment with who you say you are, not once, but always. Because power isn't found in passion. It's forged in pattern. And your patterns will tell the truth about what you actually believe. Not your dreams, not your declarations, not your mood board, your patterns. You can't hide from your life. It is your mirror. It is showing you daily what you've settled for, what you've tolerated, what you've excused, what you've denied. But power requires confrontation. It requires you to look at that mirror and say, I built this, and I can rebuild it. Power doesn't mean you never fell. It means you chose to rise before anyone offered a hand. It means you pulled yourself up with trembling arms and bleeding fists and kept walking like you were still whole. Because wholeness is not a condition, it's a choice. You must choose to be powerful in a world that profits from your doubt, in a culture that monetizes your confusion, in a system designed to distract you from the fact that everything you need has always been inside of you. They built industries to keep you small, to keep you numb, to keep you scrolling instead of creating, to keep you sedated with options so you forget that you are the source. You want to take back your power? Start by closing the tabs. You opened, looking for something that can only come from within. Close the opinions. Close the comparisons. Close the internal courtroom, where you keep putting yourself on trial for wanting more. You were not made to blend in. You were made to become so bold, so bright, so grounded in truth, that you become a threat to every lie you used to live in. But that version of you, that power, won't show up until you stop apologizing for existing. You don't owe this world anything except your unfiltered presence. And the moment you stop filtering, the moment you stop diluting your voice to make them comfortable, you'll feel something ancient rise in you. That's not ego. That's remembrance. Remembrance of the part of you that was never scared. The part of you that came here to build worlds, to speak fire, to shift reality with a sentence, to wake people up just by standing in truth. And if you feel like the world is too loud right now, it's not because you need to shrink. It's because your soul is tired of whispering. Then listen closely, because this part is not for the faint of heart. This part is for the part of you that's been waiting in the shadows, watching you negotiate your worth, watching you barter your time, your energy, your voice for crumbs of approval. It's for the part of you that's been screaming behind your silence, the part that's sick of pretending to be smaller just to keep peace that was never real. Because here's the truth. Your silence has cost you more than your noise ever would. Your hesitation has built more cages than your failures ever could. And your obedience to fear has been the thief of your becoming. You were never supposed to be polite in the face of disrespect. You were never supposed to smile while your boundaries were being erased. You were never meant to dilute your passion, to make others feel safe in their mediocrity. Power does not ask for permission. Power does not wait. Power moves. Power decides. Power says, I will become, whether or not the world is ready for me. And that declaration is when life begins to rearrange itself. That's when the right people start showing up. That's when opportunities start finding you instead of you begging for scraps, because you're no longer vibrating at the level of desperation. You've shifted into authority. And authority is not something you buy. It's not something you fake. It's something you live. Every breath, every decision, every moment, you refuse to abandon yourself again. Look around you. This world is built by those who had the audacity to believe they were worthy before they had the results. And that's where you're being summoned now. To step into the space where you choose belief before the breakthrough. Can you move like you're already it? Can you carry yourself like the storm hasn't just passed, but lives in you? Because that's what makes people listen. Not the facts, not the credentials, but the frequency, the vibration of someone who walks into a room and shifts the temperature just by breathing. You think that kind of power is inherited? No. It's forged in solitude, in sacrifice. In every silent moment, you chose growth over validation. And when you do that enough, you stop needing to prove anything, because your energy proves it for you. It says, I've done the work. I've fought the shadows. I've bled on my own altar. And I didn't just survive. I transformed. That's what power is. It's not performance. It's presence. It's not being loud for attention. It's being still in your knowing. And if that makes people uncomfortable, good. Let it. You weren't sent here to be liked. You were sent here to be clear, to be real, to be undeniable. And if your clarity shakes someone else's comfort, they were never aligned with your truth to begin with. Let them go. Release the need to explain yourself to those who only understand confusion. Release the need to soften your intensity for those who've made comfort their God. Release the need to keep betraying yourself just to keep a version of peace that demands you stay silent, because your silence will never build the life you crave. Your compliance will never earn the freedom you desire. And your permission slip, you'll be waiting forever. But when you stand up and say, I am done waiting, you become impossible to ignore, because power is magnetism, and people will feel it before they understand it. They'll feel it in your tone, in your presence, in your refusal to bend for what used to break you. That's the transformation. Not the perfect result, not the perfect plan, but the embodiment of someone who has stopped asking, am I allowed to be this big? And started declaring, I will never be small again. And that decision, it rewires you. It cracks the code. It unlocks the rooms you kept waiting to be invited into. But now you understand, you're not here to knock. You are here to own the building. You are not the student anymore. You are the force. You are not the echo. You are the origin. You are not waiting for the torch. You are the fire. And fire doesn't ask to burn. It just does. So burn. Burn with truth. burn with clarity, burn with vision so sharp, it slices through every excuse that ever tried to bind you. You've apologized enough. You've doubted enough. You've delayed enough. And now it's time not to arrive, but to remember. Remember the power you buried beneath politeness. Remember the voice you silenced for acceptance. Remember the self you exiled just to be embraced by people who never deserved your light. Call that self back. Call that voice home. Call that fire up from the ashes. Because you don't need permission to be powerful. You just need to step into it. Fully, freely, finally. And when you do, you don't just change your life. You give others permission to do the same. Because when you rise without permission, you don't just break patterns. You burn them to the ground. You become the rupture in your bloodline's silence. You become the end of generational fear. You become the one who says, no more waiting, no more shrinking, no more lies. And the world can feel it. Not because you announced it, but because your energy became evidence. Because your silence now carries weight, not wounds. This is where your voice changes. Not in tone, in origin. It no longer comes from the throat. It comes from your spine, your bones, your source. And when you speak from there, people don't just hear you, they remember themselves through you. Because truth, when spoken from the soul, is a mirror that pierces illusion. You want to change the world? Then stop asking it to understand you first. Stop negotiating your becoming. Stop trading your truth for temporary peace. Your power was never supposed to be quiet. It was supposed to be precise, not reckless, but ruthless. Ruthless with boundaries, ruthless with alignment, ruthless with your time, your energy, your presence. You want mastery? Then protect what makes you dangerous. Not with ego, with devotion to your standard, to your sovereignty, to your soul's rhythm that no one else hears but you. Let the world misread you. Let them call it arrogance. Let them project their own insecurity onto your freedom. It doesn't matter anymore. You're not in the business of being understood. You're in the business of becoming, and becoming costs. It costs approval. It costs comfort. It costs identity. But it grants something greater than all of it. Clarity. And once you touch clarity, you'll never beg again. Because clarity kills confusion. It kills hesitation. It kills every version of you that needed someone else to say, it's okay to be great. You don't need anyone to say it now. You say it to yourself. You wake up and decide, I'm no longer explaining my light to those committed to the dark. You walk like you know your soul has been forged in fire and refined in rejection. You move like the wind is on your side now because it is. Because you've stopped resisting the storm and started riding it, you don't fear chaos anymore. You command it. Because you've become the kind of person who no longer gets moved by emotion, but by mission. Let's talk about mission. Your mission isn't just your work. It's how you walk, how you breathe, how you show up when no one is clapping. Your mission is the invisible law that governs how you respond to disappointment, to betrayal, to pain, because the powerful don't avoid pain. They transform it. They use it. They bless it. And then they build from it. Every time you choose discipline over drama, vision over validation, truth over tolerance, You build, brick by brick, layer by layer, standard by sacred standard. You build a life that reflects your soul, not your survival instinct. And when you live like that, something shifts, not just in your results, in your resonance. You stop attracting chaos. You stop leaking energy. You stop tolerating half love, half truth, half living, because you are now full of fire, full of focus, full of a quiet kind of knowing that no one gave you because you earned it. And when you earn your power, you wear it differently. It's not the costume. It's not the performance. It's not the posture. It's your skin. You breathe different. You walk different. Not because you're pretending, because you remember. You remembered that being powerful is not about force. It's about freedom. The freedom to speak without softening. The freedom to lead without asking, is this too much? The freedom to create without wondering, will they like it? They don't have to like it. They don't have to clap. They don't have to understand. Because your power isn't for performance. It's for purpose. And your purpose doesn't need to be palatable. It needs to be pure. It needs to come from a place so anchored that nothing outside of you can shake what's inside of you. You've tried the other way. You've bent. You've softened. You've waited. And none of it gave you peace. Because peace does not come from being accepted. Peace comes from accepting yourself completely. Peace comes from finally saying, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I don't tolerate. And no, I'm not interested in diluting any of it to make you more comfortable. That is peace. That is power. And that is your new baseline. No more asking. No more hoping. No more shrinking. You don't need permission to be powerful. You already are. Now walk like it. Now speak like it. Now live like it. Because you remembered who you were before the world tried to make you forget. And from this day forward, that remembering is your evolution. Because once you remember, truly remember, you stop returning to the version of you they preferred. You stop entertaining conversations that drain your spirit. You stop seeking love in places that taught you self-abandonment. You stop giving explanations to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop negotiating with your own destiny. Because once the soul is awake, it no longer tolerates the loop. It no longer agrees to the delay. It no longer begs for scraps of validation, just to feel like it's worthy of taking up space. You've already spent years trying to earn what was always yours, trying to tone it down, trying to make yourself less intense, less loud, less ambitious, less clear, because you thought their comfort was somehow your responsibility. But it never was. Their confusion is not your concern. Their projection is not your truth. Their fear of your light is not your burden. You don't need to be digestible. You need to be real. And the moment you choose real over approval, you evolve. You walk into rooms with a different energy. You stop introducing yourself with apologies. You stop carrying disclaimers like shackles on your throat. Because your existence is not a disclaimer. Your truth is not a debate. Your voice is not a question mark. It is a declaration, a living, breathing manifesto that says, I will no longer betray my soul for anyone's comfort, for anyone's permission, for anyone's smallness disguised as safety. That version of you, the one who paused, every time someone blinked too hard, is gone. And what replaced them? a force, a presence, a mind so sharp that it slices through illusion before illusion even opens its mouth. Because when you become this version of you, you see through things. You see the traps. You see the games. You see the manipulation. And more importantly, you see your own patterns. You see the places where you played small, not because you lacked talent, but because you still thought you needed permission. But now you choose differently. You catch the pattern and you break it. You see the trigger and you alchemize it. You feel the fear and you act anyway. This is what real power looks like. Not absence of fear, but command over fear. Not perfection, but presence. Not certainty from the world, but certainty in self. And let's be honest, you didn't survive everything you've been through just to live a quiet life. You didn't crawl out of hell just to be nice and agreeable. You didn't rebuild your soul just to shrink it back into boxes you've already outgrown. You are not a victim. You are not a project. You are not a personality type. You are not a branding strategy. You are limitless consciousness inside a body that remembers pain, but was built for greatness. And the only thing standing between you and that greatness is the lie that says you are not allowed to be who you already are. That lie, bury it. Bury it in ritual. Bury it in discipline. Bury it in the consistency of someone who no longer betrays himself for belonging. Because real belonging doesn't require betrayal. It requires embodiment. It requires being so fully you that only the ones who are meant for you can find you. Let them find you. Let them meet you at your highest frequency. Let them rise or disappear. But you don't descend again. Don't go back. Don't water yourself down so they can feel tall. Don't lower your standards just to feel less alone. Loneliness is temporary. Alignment is eternal. And when you choose alignment, everything that was never meant for you will fall away. Let it fall. Let the silence come. Let the shedding hurt if it needs to. But do not crawl back to the version of you that was dying for approval, because that version was never real. It was a performance, a survival tactic, a costume stitched together by years of trying to fit in when you were meant to stand out like thunder. Now you know. Now you see. And once you see, you can't unsee. You can only choose. And this time, you choose you, fully, finally, without apology, without explanation, without shrinking to fit their frame of who they think you should be. You choose the power you were born with, the power they tried to strip from you, the power you buried to survive. The power you now wear, like armor made of fire. You choose it. You wear it. You speak from it. You move from it. You build an entire life around it. Because you no longer ask, you decide. You no longer wait. You move. You no longer beg. You become. And that is the beginning of your real life. Because now there is no going back. Not to the performance. Not to the pretending. Not to the persona you built to survive rooms that couldn't hold your magnitude. You've crossed the line between who you were and who you are. And the line was made of fire. It burned everything false, everything soft, everything small. And what survived the flames, that is the truth. That is the self that doesn't flinch anymore. The self that doesn't crave safety over sovereignty. The self that doesn't need to be invited because it arrives. Let me tell you something the world hopes you never figure out. You are most powerful when you stop trying to be liked, when you stop trying to be understood, when you stop trying to perform your potential, and instead you live it. Because the minute you stop asking for space, you become the space. The room shifts because you walked in. The energy changes because you showed up. Not with arrogance, with alignment, not with volume, with vibration. And that vibration is sacred. It cannot be taught. It cannot be copied. It can only be earned by standing in your truth when it would have been easier to fool, by holding your standards when your loneliness begged you to lower them, by saying no to what you used to say yes to just to feel loved. That's where power is built. In silence, in solitude, in the moments where no one's watching, and you still choose to honor your becoming over your comfort. You want to know if you're really growing? Check your boundaries. Check your schedule. Check how many people you're willing to disappoint in order to not disappoint yourself anymore. Because when you stop disappointing you stop bleeding for people who never learned how to heal themselves. That is the difference. The shift, the break in the pattern, the day your power no longer depends on how they feel about you, but on how you feel when you're alone with your choices. And if you can love yourself in silence, stand by yourself in storms, speak over yourself when doubt screams loud, you've already won. Because most people never even get there. They spend their whole life in performance, trapped in an endless play where applause is oxygen and truth is silence. But you are writing a new script where you are the source, the anchor, the frequency, the storm, the sun. And not because you need to be everything to everyone, but because you finally chose to be everything to yourself. Let them misunderstand you. Let them gossip. Let them twist your clarity into a weapon. Let them call your boundaries ego. Let them call your confidence too much. Let them call your truth intimidating. None of it matters. Because once you stop asking for permission, you stop needing protection. The world can no longer hurt someone who no longer needs to be accepted by it. That's the kind of power that doesn't shake. It shakes others because it's rooted not in performance, but in principle. And when you build yourself on principle, everything false collapses around you. Everything real remains. Let's speak of vision. Not the kind you see, but the kind you are. Because you're not chasing purpose. You are purpose, realized. You're not seeking greatness. You are the embodiment of what it looks like to rise without applause and still never stop rising. You are the rare frequency of someone who got tired of waiting, tired of proving, tired of seeking crumbs, and chose instead to become the feast. And the world, it will feel you. It won't always understand you, but it will respect you. Not because you begged for it, but because you became undeniable. You want to change your life? You want to build the vision? You want to become the blueprint for others? Then be the one who no longer waits to be chosen. Be the one who wakes up and chooses themselves again and again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when everything around you says, go back. It was easier there, because you know what ease cost you. It cost you identity. It cost you presence. It cost you years of your life, pretending to be someone the world could digest. But you're not here to be digested. You're here to be remembered. Not for what you said, but for how you lived, for what you became when no one believed in you but you. You don't need permission to be powerful. You need a decision to rise, to walk, to speak, to build, to hold, to stop waiting. Because the future isn't waiting for someone to pick you. It's waiting for you to pick yourself with your full chest, with your full truth, with your full fire. This is the moment. This is the hour. This is the life. Not the one you rehearsed. The one you claim. You were never meant to ask. You were meant to remember. You were meant to decide. You were meant to rule. And now you finally do.